Yo, I'm Kurose and welcome to the video. And we officially made it onto the SNES with Shin Megami Tensei. And unironically, this was the first SMT game that I ever played, and was one of the two Megaten games that actually got me into the franchise as a whole. And in retrospect though, this wasn't the best place to start as a new fan. But first, before we go and talk about that, let's actually talk about the development history first. After the success of Megami Tensei 2, Atlus realized that they had a hit on their hands, and wanting to capitalize on Megami Tensei's success, Atlus would buy the rights to it and soon begin development on a new game. Development of this new game was fairly easy, as not only was the development team for the first two games present, but they will also take the groundwork from Digital Devil Story 2, gameplay and all. Story-wise, it was a little bit more difficult, as while they had the main theme of the story settled, the team would have to go through different scenarios on how things would play out, like having the final conflict take place in Israel, which was an interesting idea to say the least. But eventually, on October 30th, 1992, Shin Megami Tensei would finally release on the SNES. The story focuses on Yu, an unnamed protagonist who, after he and his friends go through a demon invasion and the end of the world, you get thrust into a conflict between the forces of law and chaos, and must figure out whether to join either side, or work by yourself to rebuild the world. And like I mentioned before though, this was my first SMT game. And if you're a veteran fan, you may be thinking to yourself, Hero, why the fuck would you make this your first SMT game? And why not play something like Nocturne or hell, even SMT4? Well, dear viewer, there's three reasons why that did not happen at all. First, I ended up selling my 3DS, which was the worst decision I ever made. And second, at the time, I had no money to buy a copy of Nocturne, and emulating it was a pain in the ass with my decade-old laptop, which I'm for sure is about to die soon. And the third reason, which is in hindsight pretty stupid, was I thought that all the mainline games were connected, which is kinda true, but not really, and I blame Kingdom Hearts for this. God damn it. But anyway, in terms of reception, the game was really successful, with critics across the board almost giving this game perfect scores, and sales-wise would do great enough to establish Atlus as a developer and publisher. Now, this game and the next two games would get ports to other consoles, but SMT1 has the distinction for having the most. It was ported to the PC Engine, the Mega CD, and a remastered port for the PlayStation was released in 2001, with that version being the basis for the GBA port and the ports for iOS and Android. Fun fact, did you know SMT1 is the only classic mainline game to be officially ported to the West, albeit on iOS? And this is actually how I first initially heard about this game. But unfortunately, after 2017, the game was incompatible with iOS 11, and as such was basically delisted. So yeah, I did play the iOS version back around, I think either 2014 or 2015, which didn't last long because I struggled like a motherfucker trying to understand this game. But in 2016, I would play the original version through the fan translation created by Aeon Genesis. Now, this attempt was luckily a little easier, and I managed to beat the game at the cost of my sanity. But of course, I tried playing it on stream as well, and also completely forgot to go back to it. And if you guys want to see that hellhole in the future, then follow my Twitch. Yeah, yes. But overall, this will be my fourth time playing this game, and to say the least, it wasn't exactly what I remembered. But let's go and talk about that story first. Hey, yeah, you. If you want to play this game and you don't want to be spoiled, then skip here, alright? Cool. On to the story. The game begins with us in a trippy dream state, which I can only guess was our protag doing a tab of acid or some shit earlier in the day. In this dream, we get stopped by this face in the wall, and he prompts us to name our character and give him his stats. After doing so, he gives us a cryptic warning about the balance of the world, and from here we continue and meet our friends for this adventure. The first character we meet is a dude who's crucified on a fucking cross. What? Hey yo, what the fuck? This right here is our law hero, who also looks like Michael Jackson. The next character we meet is KO, with a demon on top of him. That's interesting. But this is our chaos hero, and oh boy. After meeting them, we later come across a woman in the spring named Yuriko, who tells our hero that they are meant to be together. The dream ends with the hero's mom waking us up, and before seeing what she wants, we boot up the computer to find a message from a man named Steven, who claims that the world is about to be invaded by demons, and at the end of the message has a demon summoning program, which we end up installing. Which I wouldn't advise downloading random shit on the internet, but you know what? Who cares? Who cares? We meet up with our mom, who tells us about a grisly murder that occurred near the house, and after giving us some money to get some coffee, we go to a shopping center where we later see a man who gets his fucking throat ripped out by a demon. And you see, I figured after this, one would just dip and be scarred for life, but nah, we end up picking up the fucking knife the dude had and just go home like nothing happened at all. Jesus, we're off to a really rocky start, aren't we? Going to sleep, we end up having the same dream from last night, and meet up with the Law and Chaos Hero again. From here we meet our final ally for the story, who's about to be sacrificed. This right here is the heroine, and after saving her, our dream ends up ending. Now, stick with me real quick, because we're about to go through this part very quickly. Prepare yourself. After being woken up, we go through a strange series of events ranging from us getting tested by an old man via a goddamn vision quest, being arrested for murder, and encountering the Law Hero, to which we end up having to escape a hospital that's kidnapping and killing people. After escaping, we come across the Chaos Hero, who's getting his shit kicked in by a dude named Ozawa, and after saving him, we head home only to find out that our mom was killed by a demon. We kill the demon and later take our good boy Pascal, and before going to the Echo building where we had that little vision quest, we fuse him with a demon to turn him into a Cerberus. Y'all still with me? Cool, because things from here on is gonna get even worse. After killing the demon from the Echo building, we make our way towards Shinjuku, where we find out that the situation has basically gotten even worse. Due to the demon outbreak, the US Ambassador Dorman has put Tokyo under martial law, with the commander of the GSDF, Goto, creating a militia to combat them by siding with demons who they see as ancient spirits of the land. Later we meet a resistance group whose goal is to stop both Goto and the US Ambassador from possibly destroying Tokyo. This resistance group is led by the heroine, and after meeting with her, she gets kidnapped by Yuriko, and almost gets executed but is saved by the hero and his friends. After saving her, she guides the Law and Chaos Hero to different parts of Tokyo in an attempt to stop both Goto's and the Ambassador's forces. We end up teaming up with the heroine and later meet with both Goto and the US Ambassador, who both tries to convince us to fight on their side. From here is where the alignment system begins to show up, but we'll go more in depth on that later on. To summarize though, you're given the option to either side with Goto, Dorman, or say fuck both of them. And for this and basically the rest of the game, we're going for the third option because both of these motherfuckers are on some shit. After defeating both Goto and later Dorman, who turns out to be the Norse god Thor himself, he ends up launching a series of nukes to Tokyo, and in the aftermath, the heroine sends the hero to an unknown area and is killed in the explosion, with the fate of the Earth unknown. Hey, enjoying the synopsis so far? Well, fun fact, this is only the first half of the game, and if this wasn't an indication of just how fucked up things are about to get, well, ladies and gentlemen, prepare yourself, because again, it only gets worse from here. After waking up, we encounter a mysterious dude named Ino Ozuno, who tasks us with finding the Law and Chaos Hero, and after getting them, he gives us a rundown of what's been going on. Where we're at right now is the Kongokai, or more officially the Diamond Realm, which the best way I can describe it is a metaphysical place beyond the realms of Earth. I have no fucking idea. 30 years has passed since the Earth has been ravaged by nuclear war and the aforementioned demon invasion, and most of humanity is still alive, but since the war, two factions were established, being the Gaians and the Messians, who are vying for control over the new world. And after learning of this and doing some tasks for Ozuno, he reluctantly sends us back to Tokyo. And this is where shit begins to go to hell, both figuratively and literally. The trio heads to Shibuya, where they come across a woman in chains who has been trying to reach the hero for help, and they end up finding out that her mind has been invaded by a demon. Learning of someone in Shinjuku that can help her, known as a Psycho Diver, they head over there only to eventually encounter Ozawa, who then promptly whoops the trio's ass. The Chaos Hero, now pissed at the state of his strength, ends up fusing himself with a demon and kills Ozawa. The Chaos Hero ends up splitting from the group as he views us as being weak and goes to search for more power. After freeing the Psycho Diver and saving the heroine, who is a reincarnation of the heroine from the past, the group heads to Roppongi and through a series of events involving a little girl wanting us to die, we eventually lose the Law Hero, who sacrifices his life to save us from Neighboros. And in retrospect, when looking at this scene, it's actually kind of funny because when you think about it, Neighboros is just berating you for ruining his plan, and afterwards he just races to the screen like, come here nigga. But back on track. After defeating him, the Law Hero ends up going to heaven, and the only way we learned about this was from this old priest, wizard, wherever the hell he is, popping up recently and just saying, oh yeah, your friend is going to heaven. And this is one of the strangest scenes in this whole entire game. But from this point on, the game kind of goes in a stalemate in terms of story, as up until around going to the Tokyo Destiny Land, or I think Ikebukuro, you're just going around fighting other demon summoners and exploring the ruined Tokyo. During this point, we also get to see both the Chaos and Law Hero siding with the Gaians and the Messians, respectfully. And we begin to see these characters turn into a shadow of their former self, which I'll go more in detail after this synopsis, but where should we start from the story? Oh, right, Tokyo Destiny Land, which is just a twisted ass Disneyland. Yeah, that was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Making our way to the Tokyo Destiny land, we encounter Echidna, who tries to convince us to help fight alongside the Gaians to prevent the Messiahs from building their 1,000-year kingdom over at the recently built Great Cathedral. And depending on your alignment, you either get to consider her invite and hear out the Messiahs in Shinagawa, side with Echidna, or you can just fight her if you're law aligned. And after making our way to Shinagawa, we meet a reincarnated law hero who is now a messenger of God and attempts to convince us on joining his side, with us either having a choice to either say yes and fight Echidna, or just say no. And for what we're doing, yeah, we end up saying no and we end up fighting Hanio, or Penio. Anyway, after defeating him, we head back to TDL and fight and defeat Echidna. With no way to the cathedral, we end up getting some help from the old men in the beginning of the game, and after entering it, we meet with the Chaos and Law hero, and after some conversation and fighting these 4 little measly gods, the world ends up flooding, and we're tasked with helping either Ravana or Vishnu in the fight against each other. So guess what I did? After beating both gods, the Law and Chaos heroes are pissed and declares us as enemies. And from here, we dive down to the bottom of the cathedral, defeating Asura and his minions, as well as the Chaos hero. And later, we climb up to the top, killing the Archangels and the Law hero. And after doing so, we're greeted by,
Heishang Laojun.
Yeah, we're not gonna attempt to pronounce that. He congratulates us for not taking a side and fighting for the people, with him later encouraging us to build a future that isn't ruled by gods or demons, but by the people. And the game ends with us and the heroine beginning plans to rebuild the entire world. Jesus, coming up with a synopsis for this story was difficult as shit. But, I mean, in terms of the story of SMT1 though, it's pretty good, no doubt about it. Compared to other JRPGs at the time, SMT is different in the way it tells its story. Instead of every area having story significance, it's more like there will be major events that will happen in specific areas, with it more or less being your journey through the game. Plus, the situations that can go down can get pretty dark, which, when I first played this game, I was surprised about. Mind you, prior to playing this game, I had been playing nothing but Final Fantasy games. And while they can get dark at times, that's not the case with SMT, as they're dark 24/7. Literally, the first half of the game shows us what's going on prior to the apocalypse, with us seeing Goto, who at first you think means well, until you explore his base and find a dungeon filled with women who have the same name as the heroine. Or how both the Chaos and Law factions are so extreme in their ways that they'll do some of the most fucked up shit in order to reach their goal. And don't even get me started on all the religious subtext here, specifically the flooding of Tokyo, which, man, oh man, this is one of the reasons SMT as a whole didn't get localized until Nocturne. Speaking of the Law and Chaos factions, let's actually talk about alignments real quick. New to this game is an alignment system which is heavily influenced by the choices you make in the story. There's 3 alignments being Law, which sides with God and his goal is to create a 1,000-year kingdom, Chaos, which sides with Lucifer and his goal is to create a world of total freedom, and finally it's Neutrality, which says screw both sides in the name of balance. And here's the thing, gameplay wise, you won't be punished for picking either of the 3 alignments, as it's just a matter of which dungeons you do, the bosses you face, the equipment you have, and etc. Instead, the game shows the positives and the negatives of choosing each side. Choosing Law means putting people through the harshest restrictions in the name of order. Choosing Chaos means freedom for the people, but with no boundaries, no laws, meaning anybody can do what they want, which at that point is just extremely chaotic. No pun intended. And while you may think neutrality is great, as is the balance between law and order, the issue with this alignment is that it's particularly unsustainable, as there's always going to be some sort of evil tipping the scale of balance and causing law and chaos to come back into the forefront. And we see this with the actions you take in the game, which further drives the point home. However, despite the freedom you get, the story clearly shows its bias in the neutral ending, which is the canon ending for the next game. Now, how do they show this bias? Through both the Law and Chaos hero. The protagonist is your typical silent protagonist. Beyond his mother being killed by a demon and a whole bunch of other shit, there really isn't much in terms of character for him. Simply put, he's an avatar for the player, which especially works for the context of this game, though for some of the later games that are more story intensive, that wouldn't work, but I'll go more in detail about that later on. The heroine is sort of the same deal. She's the epitome of a ride or die and sticks with you no matter what choice you make. The Law hero though is different. He's one of those goody two-shoes characters, but in a way where he's likable. He means well in his actions, and that ends up making him a target for the Messiahs. When he's reincarnated as the messenger of God, he believes that he has been given a second chance to help other people, but in actuality he's just a means to an end for them and is killed by the protagonist. And the worst part about it is that he finds this out after death, or through death I mean. which honestly though is rough as hell and is one of the more tragic storylines in this game. But the opposite can be said about the Chaos Zero, cause man, his story themes are great on paper. He is a character that's weak, and because of that, he'll do anything, and I mean anything, if it means becoming powerful. And this point would have been pushed further, and it does at some points. But in execution overall, he's just a bitch, who by the time he dies realizes power doesn't mean everything. It's ironic, which I like, but I just don't like him as a character. The only time where I'm like, okay, this makes sense, is when he stole my demon so he could become a lot stronger. I worked hard to get him, you son of a bitch! Now, there are other characters in the story, like Yuriko, who is a woman obsessed over the protag, but she is very underutilized. Her story arc is based around her obsession with him, and from it, she tried to kidnap and kill the heroine earlier in the game. Later, when she is revealed to be Lilith, that reveal was extremely lackluster. This could have been circumvented if she was a point of contention for the protag and the heroine, as by the end of the game, we were basically getting an Adam and Eve storyline, and if you know anything about the story of Adam and Eve, then you know Lilith is a point of contention for them. But instead, it's just nothing at all, and I feel like it was a point in which it was just, the ball was dropped here. Now, another character that we have is Louis Cypher, who also has no story significance in this game. He's a cool ass dappered up dude who totally isn't Lucifer. But yeah, you know, he has a cool ass design like some, and I mean some, of the other characters. Overall though, especially when looking at the neutral route, I love how they made this alignment one that is about balance, but at the cost of killing everyone. And while the ending is hopeful, it's also sorrowful, with the fact that for a balanced world, we basically had to kill everyone, even our friends, in order to achieve it. Enough about the story though, let's go and talk about that gameplay. And yeah, it's fairly simple. The gameplay from the past two games are here and with a ton of improvements. There are new magic spells including Almighty line of magic, the Indian line of magic, and many more. Guns are a lot more useful and there are a new variety of bullets with different effects. What's combined together is broken as shit. Swords are more available now, yet are still obtained through battling enemies. But if you were to get the Kusanagi sword, then you're able to fuse demons into the sword to increase its power. Finally, there are more demons than before, and negotiations have been expanded to the point where they act like actual conversations. Plus, you can negotiate with damn near every type of demon with varying degrees of success. And when fusing demons together, you can freely use triple fusions with no restrictions on what demons to have for it. All of this together makes this adventure a lot more doable than the last two games. The new spells can make battles a lot quicker, especially in the late game, and as broken as the guns are, they make the game bearable to deal with due to the high enemy encounter. However, I'm not too big of a fan of the sword fusing system. The idea is great in execution, but you're going to be grinding for gems a lot, especially if you end up giving them away during negotiations, or a special little somebody we'll talk about later. Now, the biggest addition, as I mentioned before, was the alignment system. This system not only affects the story, but it also affects the gameplay. Every demon is categorized not just by race anymore, but also by their alignment. And when you attempt to recruit one, you have to be the same alignment as the demon you're trying to get. So for example, if you want Lakshmi, you need to be law aligned and vice versa. Now, if you're neutral aligned, you can get demons from both sides, but you have to balance it out as it can influence your alignment. Now, law demons are weak in terms of strength, but has the best offensive and support magic out there. Chaos demons are the opposite, where they're stronger in strength but lacks the magic power that the law demons have. Now, neutral demons are the best of both worlds, even though there's not a lot of them, which didn't make any sense. They have moderate stats and they're just overall mediocre until late game, because in the late game, they are pretty strong. Another way your alignments can be influenced is through the healing spring, which instead of there being a central healing spring like before, there are now 3 of them based on different alignments. Depending on which healing spring you go to, they can influence it, and the game makes both the Gaian and the Messiah springs a lot more accessible, and for the neutral healing springs, you might as well go around the world to get to one. However, if you're either Law or Chaos aligned and go to an opposite aligned healing spring, you either get kicked out or forced to pay a lot of money just to use their services. This, however, isn't the case for the neutral healing spring, luckily, even though you, again, have to go around the world for it, and especially with the high enemy encounter, other than that though, everything here is stuff you pretty much have already seen before, and yeah, prepare for me to repeat this for the next 2 videos. Okay, so now the dungeons, right? So, check this out, right? Remember how dungeons were relatively quick to go through in Megami Tensei 2? Well, it's the same case here, and Atlus saw that shit, so guess what these motherfuckers did? Raise the enemy encounter. Why?
What the fuck, y'all? God damn!
This right here is one of the biggest issues with this damn game. No matter where you are, every 2 to 5 steps is always met with an enemy encounter, and these bitches come in waves too, with there almost being as much as 8 demons you have to kill in one encounter. These make the majority of dungeons an absolute pain to go through. Plus, most of these dungeons will have you revisit them, so in total there's about 19 dungeons. Not a lot compared to Megami Tensei 2, but these bitches can rack up. Starting with Kongokai, we see one of the major flaws of the game, direction. Unless you're playing with a map or, in general, a guide, doing the 3 quests for Ozuno and retrieving your demons will take a while to do so. Kongokai is a big maze where you have things to do before heading back to Tokyo, and these things are either mundane as hell or annoying when you gotta deal with the game's high-ass encounter rate. Not to mention, most of these demons now have status elements moves, which are beyond fucking annoying when you get hit with it. But wait, it gets worse because the second dungeon is like Kongokai Part 2. Going inside the heroine's mind made me want to scream. This dungeon is a step up in difficulty as it's virtually a gauntlet to reach the boss. And again, you need a map to be able to properly navigate this place as it's a warp maze. God damn it. As for the boss herself, she also represents another issue, status elements and inconsistent AI. She can either use nothing but status elements, which you better pray that shit doesn't land, or she'll be helpless like Princess Peach and you can proceed to curb stop her. And here's a good time as any to mention the bosses for this game. Thanks to the power of
new kitchen gun.
The bosses in this game are absolute pushovers. If you have bullets that can inflict a status ailment, you, my friend, have won the battle, as every, and I mean every boss, can get inflicted with an ailment. Even the final bosses of the game, which is fucking ridiculous. Of course, the path to the boss becomes the game's biggest challenge, so have fun with that bullshit and encounter rate. But back to the dungeons. Now, I could include every dungeon afterwards, but they all have one thing in common: the damn enemy encounters. Plus, most of them are just there for acquiring items, or they are a roadblock to the next major area. But there are three noteworthy dungeons, that being Shinagawa, TDL, and the Great Cathedral. Now, Shinagawa is noteworthy due to it being the dungeon with the Kusanagi sword, which allows you to defeat demons into it. And from here begins the most annoying quest to get the Hino Kagetsuchi, the sword that gets shit done. The process in getting it is grind intensive. If you accidentally give away an item needed for a negotiation, or good old Rags. Yeah, Rags is back and a lot more useful than before. Thank God. You see, depending on the gems you have, you can get certain demons like the elemental demons. But in this case, you need 3 particular demons: Sylph, Undyne, and the Salamander. And if you give away those required gems, prepare to do a lot of grinding. Which already this game isn't a grind heavy game, because for the most part you're just going to be grinding for money. Sylph and Undyne was easy yet annoying to get, but that damn Salamander was a pain in the ass to get, because you need a diamond, which mind you is rare as fuck to get, and are only available in Shibuya and the Great Cathedral, which, fun fact, was one of the 3 places I somehow lost my damn saves. Oh god, that shit was horrible. But what about the other 2 dungeons? So, TDL is annoying as fuck. This dungeon is another warp maze, and to add to that bullshit, there are times where your luck will be tested, and if your luck stat is not high, prepare for a lot of status ailments, because my god do they get annoying. Finally, it's the Great Cathedral, which besides giving me an unmeasurable amount of rage with losing hours upon hours of progress, it wasn't too bad. Compared to the last 2 final dungeons, this one was actually pretty tame, and with the teleport spell, you can get to the closest terminal and heal when needed. Though the trek back can be pretty annoying. Major tip though, go to the Masai side if you want to deal with no enemies and get some quick heals. Now as for the progress to get to the final boss, this is where the game drills every form of traps, from dark rooms, warp points, and damage tiles. And depending on your alignment, you either have to face off against Asura's or Michael's minions, who are easy as hell to kill. But as for the final bosses themselves, going on the neutral route meant I had to fight both Asura and Michael, including their minions, which I thought was going to be a pain in the ass. But the moment I got the Hino Kagetsuchi and ripped through all the mini bosses and got to the final bosses themselves, I had no more worries, besides the fact that they had a lot of health. The grind for the sword though was annoying as fuck, but thank God I took the time to get it. Oh, and one more thing. Each alignment has a special armor and weapon set. For the neutral route, if you don't get the Hino Kagetsuchi, then you can get Masakato's sword, which is strong as hell, and you can also get his armor set. But to get the armor set, you're going to be exploring around a lot on the overworld. And this footage here is me speeding up the emulator to get it because they're spread far out, like Dragon Balls and shit. You know what? I would be lying to you guys if I said that I wasn't excited to go back to this game. It was one of the first SMT games I ever played, and it was one that I had a lot of great memories with. But, like, replaying this game again really made me realize something. This was not exactly what I remembered. So, let's go on to the final thoughts. God damn it. So, this game has a lot of great ideas, but when executing them, they're not great. The game is broken as fuck, ranging from the guns to the boss AI, and yeah, I'm looking at y'all 8. The direction on where to go is also pretty cryptic, and makes it difficult to know where exactly to go or what to do next. Again, the bosses are pushovers, and dungeons are not fun to go through and explore due to the high encounter rate. But I will be lying to you if I said that there weren't some positives to this game, like the bomb-ass story. Simple, I know, but it's still pretty cool, I like it. It has great music, a lot of the gameplay mechanics from the past games have been greatly improved, and the environments which adds to the dark themes of the game. Well, y'all know what time it is. Should you guys play Shin Megami Tensei 1? Again, maybe. The biggest reason why I say maybe is due to the encounter rate. And also being lost, which is going to be like a common occurrence. So if you can deal with this, then you should play this game, albeit with a guide. It's mandatory, and if not, then good luck because you're going to need it. Oh, and one more thing. If you don't want to play the SNES original, you can play the GBA port, which got a fan translation last year. This port is based off the PlayStation version, which I think visual-wise is a lot better, and also features some more story. However, the reason why I didn't play this version, nor I would recommend it, is because play at your own risk. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. Next video is going to be on SMT2, which honestly I haven't really played to completion, because I have played it before, but there was a reason why I stopped. So it should be interesting going back to it this time, you know, knowing my knowledge for the past 3 games. So yeah, it should be interesting. Who knows? Like always, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to stay safe, get vaccinated so you guys don't get sick out there, and make sure to keep yourself safe. Peace.